everyone! My name is Mishka and welcome back to my channel. This video is a part of a series of videos that I'm doing where I talk about how to apply to the foundation program as an IMG. In my last video, I talked about different terminologies and went over basic information that you need to know before you consider applying to the foundation program. If you haven't seen that video, you can pause this one and watch it now. The link is in the description. So today, we'll be talking about the eligibility application, what it is, and how to prepare yours. Take note that I'm basing the information in this video off of my own experience as well as the 2022 Eligibility Applicant Guidance. While this video can offer you a breakdown of the things you'll need, I cannot stress enough how important it is to read the most up-to-date guidance yourself and to constantly check updates on the official websites because anything can change. I also want to apologize in advance because this video does get technical. I'll be talking about cutoffs, criteria, requirements, and all the other boring things that we need to think about to get the bread, you know. Alright, what is the eligibility application? So the eligibility application is basically a way for you to prove to the foundation program that you're eligible to apply for its 2-year training program. This is their way of making sure that the medical graduates have the proper knowledge, skills, and evidence that they need to be a part of the foundation program. Most UK medical graduates will already be nominated by their medical school, and they won't have to apply through the eligibility office. But that doesn't mean that it's only IMGs applying through the eligibility office. This process has to be done by all graduates outside the UK, all UK graduates who qualified 2 years prior to the start of the foundation program, or those who are non-UK or non-settled person studying for a UK medical degree overseas. If you do fall under these categories, then you do have to make an eligibility application. And before you consider applying, you must also be sure that you're only eligible to have a provisional license with the GMC and not a full license. That is, if you want to apply for the 2-year training program. That means if you've taken an internship back home that falls under the GMC's criteria of postgraduate clinical experience, then the 2-year foundation program isn't for you. Not to worry, because I'll be talking about the standalone FY2 program and the WAST program as well in my later videos. Let's get started. So the first requirement is proof of ID. This is a relatively simple requirement. You simply have to scan and upload a copy of your passport or your driving license. I don't know how to simplify that any further, so let's move on. Then we have the Dean's Statement. This document is basically your dean saying that they're allowing you to apply to the foundation program. I think aside from the proof of English knowledge, this was actually one of the toughest requirements to arrange. But this was mostly due to the pandemic. It took a lot of liaising with my school to get this done, and I'm so very grateful for all their help. I think my tip for this part of the application is to make sure that the date they place is the date you qualified for your degree, and not necessarily the date where you wore your togas and marched to get your diploma. Basically, it's the date your school officially decided that yes, this person is graduating. Next is your medical degree. If you already have your diploma, then this is simple enough that you just have to scan this and upload this to Oriel. If you don't have your diploma yet though, it's just a little trickier. You will then need a letter from your school signed by your dean confirming the date that you expect to qualify. You can usually find a format of this letter in the appendices of the eligibility guidance. Next up is GMC. So this part of the application wants to know, will you have a license by the time you start work? When I submitted my application, I just had to provide proof that I've already booked my PLAB 1 seat. Usually, PLAB 1 is only done 4 times a year. And the latest date that you can book is the November date, as this is the last date that will give you enough time to take both PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 and have enough time to apply for provisional registration by July before you start your work. With the pandemic though, you never know what the GMC will plan in terms of PLAB dates, so keep checking the website for updates on that. So the next part of the application is the English language. For the UKFP, the cutoff for your English proficiency, oh my god, I can't say that. It's so ironic. It's an IELTS of 7.5 in each domain, or an OET of 400. You need to have achieved this in 1 sitting of the test, or else it won't be valid. There's a section where your dean can declare that your curriculum was taught in English. Sometimes the UKFPO will accept this in lieu of an IELTS or an OET, as long as your school is not listed in the GMC's list of universities from which we don't accept evidence of knowledge of English. I myself tried to avoid taking the IELTS. However, I ended up taking the IELTS anyway, because when I tried sending a similar letter to the GMC from my dean, even though my school wasn't on the said list, I was told this was not valid evidence for the GMC, as my school was in the Philippines, and the Philippines' first language isn't English. Then again, the UKFP and GMC are different entities, and they do have different English language requirements. Please note that this story was from my own experience of trying to use my primary medical qualification as evidence of English knowledge. While the GMC may not accept your PMQ as evidence if your school is in the Philippines, things may change and you can always try and call them to clarify before attempting this. Just make sure you leave enough time to take the IELTS just in case. Anyway, here's a story about my crazy IELTS experience. So I actually have a horror story to tell you guys about this. So I took the IELTS initially and got an all-right score. And I thought I was all good to go. Then I realized that 2 weeks before the deadline that the cutoff for UKFP was 7.5 in all domains, and not 7.0 like in the GMC. So then I thought to myself, do I need to retake the IELTS? Will they accept my dean's statement as proof of English proficiency? The GMC didn't accept the same statement, so what if the UKFP doesn't either? At dahil praning ako, I ended up cramming for a second IELTS. The thing is, the only date that was available was the one 5 days before the deadline of submitting the eligibility application. So what I did was I crammed the IELTS, I took it, and instead of waiting patiently at home for 5 to 7 days to get my result back, on the day of the deadline, I had to go all the way to the test center and physically wait there for my result so I could have it as soon as it came out. I ended up submitting my application, but only 3 hours left to the deadline. This is why I cannot stress enough to please read the guidance carefully and thoroughly. Anyway, since I did take the IELTS twice, I do have some tips on how to prepare for that too. In the next part of the application, you'll see a section called the clinical assessment. So according to the Foundation Program website, this exam has 2 stages, which involves an 8-station OSCE type exam. It's good to check the eligibility guidance to see if you need to take this test or not. Basically, if it will be more than 2 years since you've graduated medicine by the time you start work, then unfortunately you will have to take this examination. I didn't have to take this exam because I graduated medicine in 2019 and started work in 2020. But had I applied a year later, I would have to take this exam. There is usually a specific cutoff date in the uploaded guidance, so it's good to check that out. And lastly, it's the right to work. Anyone applying through the eligibility office will need to prove their right to work in the UK. If you're a UK citizen or resident, this will be your passport or your residence permit. If you're a non-UK or non-settled worker, then you are not required to give evidence at this time, and you only have to indicate in the application that you do not currently have right to work in the UK. When I applied for UKFP 2020, if you didn't have right to work in the UK, you'd automatically be placed at the bottom of the ranking, regardless of your score in the SGT or how well you did in medical school, making your chances of getting a slot in the foundation program very slim. At the time, this would of course turn people off from applying to the foundation program as an IMG. The good news is that now, according to the UKFP 2021 and 2022 eligibility guidance, they will no longer be prioritizing those with right to work, and they will provide you with a certificate of sponsorship so you can apply for your visa once you've been allocated a slot. There are much more details about this in the guidance. Okay, I'm going to stop here for now. If there's anything to take away from this video, it's to read the guidance carefully. Read it once, read it twice, read it thrice, read it with your friends, read it with your family, just read it a bunch of times. Make sure you don't miss anything out. The great thing about the eligibility guidance is that it does cover a lot of bases, especially if you have special circumstances. If the guidance doesn't cover it and you do still have questions, you can always email the UKFPO help desk to clarify things. When I read it myself in the beginning, I had no idea what was going on, and reading the guidance alone did turn me off from applying. That's why I wanted to make this video, to try and simplify some of the things in the guidance. But at the end of the day, you must read the most up-to-date guidance yourself to avoid any problems in the future. Thank you all for watching. I hope what I discussed today was helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Or if you have any questions about my experience, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you're updated on when I post next. Alright, see you later!